All right, what's up, mananap? Good evening, everyone. So, just kidding. Good evening. Okay. All right. You don't have to be formal. Okay. So, before we'll jump into programming, I would just like to elaborate on something, especially the things that you will need to know, no, especially in terms of if you want to really, if you really would like to pursue your endeavor in programming. Now, in every programming language, there is this what we call steps, or there is this what we call phases in terms of how a program is actually processed. So in C++, since we choose C++ as our language for programming one, then I'll need to discuss the on how a certain program is being processed by a I mean how a C++ program is being executed from its from writing a certain codes to executing it. Okay, so to start with, as you can see here, okay, uh, happened to my, as you can see here, it's not working. Oh, epic fail, not working. Wait ha, kaya di nag-work ako ang, so, ala, na, dili working akong tablet guys, wait lang. Tipot lang mo dra. Ayun. So, all right, from the in the event that we are now going to create a program, so we'll need a text editor. So again, we always need a text editor, whether you're actually programming using PHP, Java, or C or C++ or even Python or any programming language, you will actually need or will actually be needing an editor. So this is actually the phase one or the step one in developing a program, or a software. So basically, this editor is where we write our source codes. So a notepad can be considered as an editor. So uh, you can actually mute your audio, everyone, para wala yung mga distractions. Like basin ang mama dira, no, nay basin ay mama na magyaw-yaw na po dira. So mas okay kung uh, basin ang basin mo kalit ra nag ano ang chicken cordon dira ron. Okay. Right. Wa jud. Kinsa man jud to? Saba. Sige. Unya na lang ta later. I mean unya lang ta magsaba-saba. Don't you worry. I'll give you balot. Okay. So again, let's back where we left off. Every time we create a program, we need a text editor. So way back before, we actually use a notepad in creating a program, and then we just install some sort of like compiler, and then after that we compile manually. Now we compile our program manually, especially like we I used to, or we used Java before in our programming one, and then we actually wrote our programs in a notepad, and then we compile our codes manually. And we really have to go through these processes, no, these steps. So starting with the editor, so that's where you write your source code. Next is preprocessor. This preprocessor in C++ is what we call preprocessor directives. These are library, these are packages in C++. This is where your no your kumbaga your classes, packages are actually located in C++. The moment we install a C++ language, it will be also installed part of the package. Yan. So every time kasi in a programming, particularly in C++, every time we use a certain syntax or a certain structure rather, we'll need a library, okay, that supports it. We need a package that supports it. So like for an instance, for something like a cout na cout structure. In a cout structure, we will be needing IOStream, okay, IOStream.h. It depends on the IDE you are gonna be using. It doesn't have .h. That way we call it the header file. No, okay, it has that .h. Anyway, you will understand that one once we have already we already have our actual programming, which is later on. I'm gonna show to you later how to write programs in C++. Okay, so this one is the preprocessor directive. So every time you create a program, you start with an editor. So this time, since nana tayo mga IDE, so by the way, when we talk about IDE, this is integrated development, okay, development environment. Okay, so integrated development environment. So like for an instance, in C++, we have code blocks, we have in Java, we have JCreator, Eclipse, we have NetBeans, and then we have Visual Studio Code. Okay, for Python, we have PyCharm, and then for Java, we can also use, for C++, we can also use Visual Studio Code or even Eclipse. So we use this IDE to the IDE actually do this steps or phases parang all at the same time na. Unlike before, you really have to go through this process, now each of this process. So let's start with the editor, again, preprocessor, and then it goes to the compiler. So what do you mean by compiler? Compiler translate high-level language into machine language rather. So translate high level. By the way, if you have questions, you can interrupt me while I'm in the middle of my discussion. So translate high level language into, all right, machine language. So ML, no, machine language. So which are actually these machine language are actually zeros and ones, no? So something like that. So how our computers being able to understand us, being able to understand our the way so that we are able to communicate and make our computers understand us, we'll need to have high level language. We need to have some instructions, and these instructions comes in a maybe programming language or command or commands, no? So but since we are actually studying a program or a programming language rather, so the things that we are actually writing in an editor are normally we call it high level language. When we talk about high level languages are English like statements, no, mga English yeah, mga English like statements like for an instance, C out, no? It's C represents the what we have here, C out. Now, it means that we are going to output a certain string or a certain value. Okay, so this one is an example of high level language. Now, for a computer to understand this language, which is high level language, we'll have to have a compiler. And this compiler now is going to translate this language, now this C out right here, into ML, no, into machine language, which are zeros and ones. Zeros and ones are the only thing that a computer can understand. No, there's no other way for our computer to understand our language. The only way to understand us is it has to have that program which is called compiler that is going to convert the language that we are writing into zeros and ones. So, can you guys research the value of let's say C? What's the value of C in ASCII code? Because I'm gonna show you how this C specifically in a C out, no, we'll take this C as a code in that we write, no, in an editor, and then we are going to convert this C into binary digits or into machine language. So can you guys look for ASCII of as C? ASCII stands for American Standard Code for Information Interchange. What's the ASCII code of C? 9067. Okay. Sige, 67. So therefore, since 67 ang letter C, letter D is 68, letter B is 66, Therefore, letter A is 65. No? So probably if that's the case, then therefore this is how our computer, uh, what they call this one, convert this language into machine language, into binary digits. For an instance, we have 67. So that being said, there is this what we call bits, no? We represent 8 bits for this one. So 1, 2, or 9, 4 dapat. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and 1 to 8. Okay? 1 to 8 yan ha. Alright. So, of course, this 1 to 8 is actually 0 because we only have 67 as a value. Okay? So, since 64 is less than 67, then therefore, it has 1 bit right here. So it's like you're going to sum up the bits, sum up the bits to sum up the bits to actually conclude 67. Or pwede po in other way, 67 minus 64, and the remaining value is actually 3, and then you are going to take 2 and 1 as your digits, binary digits that will take 1, because 64 plus 2 is actually 66, plus 1 is 67 to conclude 67. Or you can do something like 64 and then you take 2, 66, then this one. So do you follow? So these ones right here are all zeros. So zeros na to say 16, 8, and the 4. So therefore, our C is actually has equivalent of 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. So that's how our computer understands letter C. So in every character, it has to be converted that in that language. So our computer is being able to understand that. So that's how compiler works. So now, if there are aside from that, compilers also recognize the violation of rules. Okay, so what do you mean by syntax? When we talk about syntax, it's like grammar, no? So, what's grammar? Di ba Murat siya, sa English pa, it's English grammar. You'll need to follow subject and verb agreement. Okay, so if your subject is singular, then therefore you're going to use a singular verb. So, paingon taog Lisa. So dili ka pwede mo Lisa R, no? Because it violates the rule in subject and verb agreement. So you should say something like Lisa is, or like people are, no? Dili people is. So therefore you are able to have it causes you grammatical error. So in a similar manner sa programming, you'll need to follow a certain structure because otherwise you will cause, or the program will actually gives you syntax error. So these syntax error are actually produced by compilers, because compilers is going to check the a certain statement or structure whether it does not violate any. Okay, like for an instance, instead of writing C out in all lowercase, you do something like dako ang letter C, and then out na dili kuot. Okay. All right. So instead of writing C out in all lowercase, na write nimo siya into like C dako out, then it will cause a syntax error because you don't follow a certain rule. So you should follow. Okay. So how do we know the syntax, sir? Okay, that's what this course is all about. We are going to know a certain syntax, because without if you don't follow a certain syntax, you will always your program will always gives you an error, no? It will always cause you syntax error. Okay, so that's for compiler. Now for the library, I've already talked to you about earlier, no, about classes, packages, and all that. So when we talk about library, it's actually similar to a library that contains books. Okay? As we all know, pag may utag library, na ana siya collection of books and it is arranged in a probably in a Dewey Decimal System ba, it depends on how they arrange the books. But yeah, so they arrange the book so that there is faster searching. Okay, so either in a chronological order ba, either in alphabetical order, or either by title or by genre or by parang by what they call this one, by subject, something like that. So now in similar manners, there is at sa programming, this library contains a lot of mga packages and classes. Okay, so every time you write a program, once you you reach this level, you don't commit any syntax error. That's the time now it is going to the compiler will now go through the linker. I mean the your program now will go through linker, and then it actually reference to the library that you it actually reference to the library where okay where a particular structure is actually what they call this one, parang i-reference niya whether let's say for an instance we are actually defining a cout structure, and the cout structure requires iostream.h. Therefore, this linker now is going to reference to our library in which it was it declared ba? No, was the is the iostream declared above because you're using cout, which is later on I'm gonna show to you. No, if you fail to actually declare a certain library of that particular structure, then during compile time during compile time now you will also it will also the program will also cause an error. So by the way, the work of like linker is actually it combines the objects program with other programs. So basically it provides a parang to create so that we are able to create an executable code. That's the actually the role of like linker. And then the last one is the loader. So the loader is actually going to load the executable code or program here from the uh, linker into our memory. So this time, i-load na niya into RAM. Or RAM stands for random access memory. As we all know, RAM is also one of the most important components of our computer because everything we run, like this one, no, we run a PowerPoint, we run a browser, we actually run OBS or basta, no, every time we run an application, it will be allocated to your RAM. Okay, so this similar to when we write a certain program, everything that we define in our program will also be allocated to our RAM. And then after we terminate or exit our program, of course, we let's say we close a program or a certain program, it will also be deallocated from the RAM or from the memory. So meaning tanggalon na po niya, no? I parang it will vanish from there, no? Mawala na siya, mag-evaporate lang siya. And then of course, the last part is execution. This is where you see what running program. No? So the running program is if ever walay errors, you you don't violate any rules na kay mga what they call this one we have you use a certain library, then because I mean you use a certain structure and then there is library corresponding to it or necessary na kailangan i-declare, then therefore it will be loaded to our memory. After that, execution is the last phase, and then you will see running program. All right. So that's for how a C++ program is actually being processed. But again, as I've said, because of the IDE, now integrated development environment, you don't have to go through all these processes or steps because it's now part of IDE. It's just one click away and you're able to run your program. As long as, of course, you don't commit syntax error, you use a certain library specific to whatever structure you are declaring, And then after that, you will have your program run, no? Okay, so any question? So far, wala? Hello? Okay, good. Okay, gina-absorb pa. O, maayo. Oh, yes, napo ko'y tubag. Unsa man? Unsaon ah, pag-convert? Ah, okay, sige. Wait. Sige, let us have a separate file. Okay, para makita ninyo. Oh, yun. Yun. Hala, gapuha sa inyong maestro, oy. Makasilaw. Alright, sige. So, sige. Before we'll proceed, na ay question about sa katuingon ninyo. So, let's say for an instance, unsa may ano sa binary conversion. Okay, nani siya, no? Ano to akong draw dire. Wala di akong draw dire. Mao ni ron. Wait for a while kay pangitaon sa nako ang options. Kay ayun, tora. Kasi okay, so dirita sa question ni Aling Nena. Ang question niya is about how do we convert a certain value. Sige, so again, the easiest way to convert a certain value into binary is to know ASCII code. Okay, for an instance, ASCII code of A is pila to? If the ASCII code of C is 67, then therefore this one is 65. 65 nila. Tama? If that is the case, okay, mao man kaya inyong nakita dito. So we have 67, we have this one is 66. So now, using the digits, makita ba ninyo? Okay. All right. Using the bits, no? The 8 bits. Kailangan na tong 8 bits. So 128, we have kasi nawala, kasi nawala. Nawala po. Okay, 64, sa sunod 32, then we have 16, tama? Then we have 8, we have 4, 2, 1. So, kana siya class mo ng 8 bits, no? 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. So, times 2 lang na mo. That's actually 8. This one, 8 bits, this is actually equivalent to 1 byte. So, parang 1 byte is actually 8 bits. So, pag abot ninyo sa inyong number system, actually, sa inyong basic computer siguro, you will have this one. But sige, since you asked, so inani na siya, at least na mo idea now. So, since 65 din siya, okay? So, actually, the easiest way, actually, naani siya rules na i-follow or na siya algorithm na i-follow. Pero, pwede tato siya by diretso, no? Pinakadali, no? Pinaka-easiest way. The easiest way I know is that, ano lang, all you just need to do is determine the ASCII code. So, let's say for an instance, this one is 65. Okay? And if you look at it in the binary bits, you have to look for a certain value na dili lapas or at least or dapat equal siya or dili siya mulapas sa 65. So unsa man na number dira ang dili mulapas sa 65? Oh, right. If na exact value dira, then pilion to nimong exact value. Siyempre no kung naay exact na moral feeling nimo para jud siya sa imuha mo imong pilion. Pero kay wala man kita kaglain. So mo na imong pilion is kani. So since 64 is closer to 65, yeah, dili siya more than, and therefore na siya isa ka bits dira or isa ka bit, no? So di ba ang bits na to zeros and ones lang. So kumbaga kaning bits na 1 mo nang musiga, no? So musiga na sa imong motherboard. Kay naman tay sa atong breadboard naman ay mga murag bangag-bangag dira no murag para sa skyflakes na naay bangag-bangag. So naay musiga na dito sa tong kana naay 1 diha na part. Okay? And then to complete this 65, pila na lang kulang sa 64? Oh, so mo na. Okay, so 1. Yan. So 64 plus 1 is 65. Therefore, the rest are now 0 na. Ana, oh. So na may dali na may ano ani ka ng other ways pero mao niya ang pinakadali nga pamaagi. Okay? So in 66 therefore kani pud siya 1 tapos sunod 64 and this one is 2 okay and 1. Okay? The rest are 0 na siya. Ayan, okay? So pwede na mo mapadalag sulat na binary inyong i-ano para mabuang og kanang kinonvert inyong ipadalag sulat. Okay? All right. So every character i-convert niya into uh oh, kinsa man ingon mali ning marker. Kinsa man sus. Mali ning kuan palitan nato og bago mali na. Wala na. Oh, bitaw. Kuan man ni mali lang ang kuan pagsulat. Mali na ang nagsulat mali. Ang kuan diay ang ballpen mali. Ang di siya ballpen. Okay. So dili isa lang na dira no, 1 lang na kinsa man gyud nag-ingon na kinsa man gyud ingon na ano na siya. So ayan, 64 plus 2 is 66. So katong isa kay ako 'to gituyo para mahibala na ako ba kung naminaw jud no. So we have 0, 0, 1, and 1. So ana siya. Example, sige daw, let's say dili ta mag-anog letter but let's say I have here sige 150 o pila man ang asa man ang 150 sige daw be. Sige, unsa man? Okay, sunod. 132. Sobra sobra na, sobra na. Okay, 16. Oh, okay, pila naman 128 plus 16? 140. Oh, pila na lang kulang? Unsa? Okay, 4 and 2. Kasi 128 plus 1 128 plus 16 is pila? 144. Tapos 144 plus 4, 148. Plus 2, 50. So makumpleto ni mong 150. So the rest, 0 na siya. Nakuha na. Dahil na diyan. Ano ba? Actually, mo naman ni siya, decimal naman ni siya, mga decimal value na ni siya. Decimal value naman ni siya. O, erase na ta. Ada because technical para actually i-divide man na nimo by 10 good, i-divide nimo by 10 by kasi decimal man 'no, by 2 rather, i-divide nimo by 2, o i-modulus nimo by 2, o ang taas na process ato is kuan, let's say 150, i-kuhaon nimo ang modulus by, modulus ana niya, and then 150 divided by 2, ang result ani which is pila yung result ani, 75, o mo na po na i-modulus to 2 nimo. So kani modulus to 2 ani kay, 0, kani pilay ano ani, 1 'no? So mo na ang taas na process, and then after that ang pag-divide nimo 75 by 2 pila, thir 37 lang, okey? 3750 pero dili na siya 3750 kasi dili man din siya may point, unless magbutang point dira 'no or point diri. So with decimal iyang value, 37. So kuhaon mo ang remainder, 37 divided by 2 pero ang remainder imong kuhaon this is pila? Hmm, wa oh, so naay sobra isa, tima? Kay 36 man, oh, 1 na pud siya. So, oh, inana ang taas nga process ato. So, mao to ang pinakadali nga process. Hindi I don't know, depende sa inyong teacher. Depende sa inyong teacher kung i-follow ta niyo na algo. Sa no, dili. Kasi kung i-program nato siya, you follow that algorithm. Pero kung dili nimo siya i-program, mata-matahon nimo pwede ra to siya ato. Ito akong gihatag sa inyo na sample. Kung papel-papel lang, okey ra. Pero kung i-program mo siya, kailangan nimo mahibalaan ang algorithm niya. Speaking of algorithm, mao na 'tong discussion today. Okay? So, algorithm. So, unsa ang algorithm? Okay? Gwapo-gwapo na akong agi karon, oh. So, nakaano na ni grade 4 na ni. So, algorithm is a step-by-step process leading to a solution. So, when we talk about step-by-step process, it is or it has to be finite, no, exact. So, it's a step-by-step process. No, a step-by-step process leading to a solution. So, when we talk of algorithm, it is either, okay, sa programming, either pseudocode na siya or pseudocode or flowchart. Okay. So let's talk about pseudocode. Unsa nang pseudocode, unsa ning flowchart. So to start with, by the way, kung mag-store tag algorithm, this is a certain steps no that we follow coming up with a solution. Okay. So for an instance, let's say for an instance, how do you brush your teeth? How are you going to teach a little child so that he or she will know how to brush his or her teeth? Sige, example na atay toddler sa balay. Of course, they don't know everything they don't know how to brush their teeth sa kay wala pa nagtudlo sa ila. So how are we going to teach that child so that he will know how to brush his teeth? So unsa imong buhaton? You are going to sige. So you are going to do instructions, no? You're going to create instructions for that child. So probably magbutang ka og number 1, o mayon kag number 1. Unsa man imong buhaton? Okay, get the toothbrush. Okay. Get the toothbrush. Very good. Oh, sige, get the toothbrush. Kay basing lahi iyang kwaon, oh, di ba? At least toothbrush yun iyang makuha. Unsa man ni? Toothbrush. Okay, sunod. Okay. Uh, get, get and put, uh, get and put a toothpaste. Okay. Alright, sunod. Basin, oh, toothpaste yun. Katong na pangalan na toothpaste. Kay basin shampoo ang mga kuha. Alright, next. Ah, get a cup. Ah, or sige, pour water to a cup. Tama ba na itong mga grammar? Okay. So, pero, yan, pour water to a cup. And then after that, into a cup lang eh. Ay, hindi na ito, grammar na. Okay. Sige, sunod. Pray, mag-pray. O sa sunod, look in the mirror pa. Oh. Pwede, no? Kaya na, lami mag-toothbrush, magtanaw sa salamin, no? Pero sige, ang pinaka-straightforward na buhaton ana is that, unsay buhaton? Ayaw, don't make that child, no? Uh, by the way, don't make that child do the same way you do. That stupid thing you do, no? Ayaw na. Sige, unsa to? Start brushing, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. So, unsa pa? Brush your teeth tapos dapat unsa ba? Upward, unsa na by moving your brush something. Oh, oh. Up. O sige, up, mura mura matag robot. Up, down, up, down, side by side. Ay naku. Okay, kanila ginang little English only, little English only. O sige, sir, uh, brush your teeth up and down, side by side until the kiki is done. Daw, is gone. No. So brush your teeth up and down, side by side until the kiki is gone. O sige. Alright, next. Ang sa sunod, gargle. Ang sa tuwingan, gargle, gargle your, usa man? Gargle the water. Basta gargle using H2O. Uh, gargle water and spit it. Don't swallow it, no? So gargle water and spit. Ana. Until the bubbles are gone or something like that. Until satisfied na siya. So again, this is the algorithm. If a child, no, is going through these steps, he is able to now brush his teeth successfully. Kasi if having said na very very specific man ato ang instruction. Pero again ha, there are times, by the way, listen guys, there are times depende na sa as I will tell you now that it depends na on a person. Kasi let's talk about algorithm. By the way, in every problem, there is this what we call solutions to it, no? First, and then there can be a lot of possible solutions for that certain problem. So let's say we consider that this is a problem for a child on how to brush his or her teeth. Now, there are actually a lot of solutions on how to make the child know a certain algorithm on brushing teeth. So pwede na, 'di ba? Pwede niyo na mag-interchange like get a get a water sa uh, before siya magkuha sa iyang toothbrush or toothpaste, tama ba? And then so pwede siya mag-interchange but dili siya pwede na o pwede pod na mauna mag-gargle sa before siya mag-ano og brush or before niya i-brush ang toothbrush sa iyang teeth. Naapoy uban na uh, sana wet muna the toothbrush with the toothpaste, di ba? Before brushing it to your teeth. Di ba na yun, Ana? Are you guys like that? Ako kay ginabasa sa nako kay mas nice man ang basa siya bago nimo siya ibutang sa baba, no? So, basa siya sa daan. Oo. Although it's not my words are dirty, ha, it's your mind. So, ayan. All right. So there are again that is how algorithm works. So again, it's like there are many ways on how to catch fish now from an ocean. So there are many ways on how to kill a chicken. Grabe no, grabe pud ka cruel. Kill jud. Basta there are actually a lot of ways. Yes, saman. Oo. So there are actually a lot of ways to provide solution to a problem. And we will there are actually a lot of ways to provide algorithm to a solution. So in a similar manner, murag sa ato ang just like the way we solve a problem, there are actually possible solution or solutions. Many solutions can be actually pwede daghang solutions sa ang problema. Okay? So, ayan. So, having said that, this is actually what we called pseudocode. Okay? So, what is pseudocode? Pseudocode is an informal English statements, English-like statements. So by following this one, so our computer is like a child. Okay, it's like a child that follows only what we instruct them to do. So therefore, if you have this kind of algorithm and you write this, you convert this into a programming, so that computer is able to understand this one. Okay, of course, na siya mga compiler, the compiler has to convert this to binary digits, atong gibuhat kanina, zeros and ones. So it's not no longer our concern because it's the concern of compiler now. So therefore, ato ang ano dire is if these are the steps though on like for instance you create a robot, no? A robot that brushes our teeth. Now instead of kita ang mag-brush atong teeth, ang robot ang mag-brush sa teeth ang robot ang mag-brush your teeth for us. So if these are the instructions you write to that for that robot to follow, then ma-achieve nimo ang solution, which is this one, no? Solution for how to brush a certain teeth. How to brush a teeth. Okay? So that's pseudocode. But of course, it's still a pseudocode. Let's now proceed with flowchart. Okay. So the flowchart naman uses symbols, uses geometrical symbols. Okay. So these ones are mas formal ni si flowchart. It's because you are going to use symbols, and these symbols represent a certain process or a certain step, towards like here. So here, let's say for an instance, we are going i-erase natin siya. Okay, I'm gonna erase this one. Namoy question class, wala. Okay, sige. Alright. Sige, direta sa, let's say, maghimo ta og kuan program na mag-perform or let's say mag-perform og arithmetic operator or operation, no, mag-perform og let's say addition. No? So ang ato ang himuon daw na program is let's say perform addition of two integers or two numbers. So mao na ato ang perform addition or sum of two or the sum of two integers. So using pseudocode unsay buhaton nato ana. So of course, we are going to have let's say step 1. Unsay may step 1 nato ani? Pseudocode muna. So step 1 in adding two numbers. So considering na child gyapon siya, sige. How do we let the child, I mean how do we make the child now na maka-perform na siya in adding two numbers? So pwede na, let's say take two integers. So pwede no, or take or input two integers. Something like that, no? So probably basta there is first integer and there is also second integer. Okay? Next step. Sa may buhaton sa next step. Saan naman mo nangatulog na? Add okay, add the to integers. Okay. So, pwede din mo pakapinan using the plus symbol. Ana. Okay? And then after that, show the sum lang siguro or result. Okay? So this is now an algorithm. If i-follow, you are able to add two integers. So, syempre, it's simple, but again, our computers do not know how to add two integers until you write a certain instruction that is going to be followed by our computers. So now let's talk about flowcharting. So what's flowcharting? Flowcharting is something like uh, uh, a walkthrough of a step using mathematical symbols or geometrical symbols. So in every algorithm, in every flowchart or in every program, dapat na siya start. Now let's know basic symbols of flowchart. So basic symbols muna tayo ha. So we have here. So number one is this one. So this one denotes start and end. Okay. Start and end. All right. This one denotes start and end. Okay, next is if you want to take values, you will need these symbols. Symbol rather, this is like parallelogram symbol. So that's this one is an input, output. Okay, and then after that, if you are going to do a certain calculation or mag-calculate ka, mag-perform ka mathematical operation or a certain process, then this one denotes a process. Okay? So this involves calculations, mga calculations, uh, derivations, yan. And then if you want to have decisions in your program, in your algorithm, you use diamond sign. So this is decision. Okay? So like you want to navigate you want you want your program to parang skip a certain block of codes. So therefore, da kay decisions kasi if unsa tong decision na true, mao lang to iyang i-execute. Okay. Next is we have actually natay others na mga symbols like this one. So these ones are display. Tama ba akong pagka-drawing? Okay. So this one is a display. Then, okay, napatay isa di ay we have initialization, nakalimutan na 'to. So we have this one is initialization. So if you want na kay mga initialization of values, declaration of values, you use this symbol. Okay. Another one is natay kani siya, no? We call this as on-page connector. Okay? So unsa nang on-page connector? If you use let's say you have this is like one page, no? Kay one page na this is one bond paper, and then let's say this one is A4, and then you're actually writing a flow chart, and then nakay mga let's say input, and then nakay certain decision, and dili siya ma-fit sa dili sa baba, so you are going to something like mabutang kag A. So A, therefore, since napa may space dire and you don't want to actually draw a parang line para medyo neat imong program. So this is circle on page connector. So A, then you will just have to draw here an on page connector. So on page connector is used within the page. So let's say for an instance, ana. So mapadayon ka dire with like certain na kay process. Ayan. And then I don't know what's next after that. Okay. And then there's also another one which is called off-page connector. So unsa po ning off-page connector? When you try to create an flowchart and then dili siya mag-fit sa isa ka page. So that's the time you will use off-page connector. For example, nag-ano ka, let's say, butanin mo siya B. And then sa other page, sorry, sa other page sa bond paper, na kay other page bond paper, actually salamin na siya. Okay, na kay other page, mo na imong other page. So this is page 1. kani page 2 sa imong A4. So this time na kay off page connector. So butang na pug tag off page connector dili. This one indicates na kay next. Okay, na kay next process after P. Yan. Kaya di man mag-fit dito sa isa ka page. So that's the use of off page connector. All right. So that's the basic symbols of flowchart. Now let's convert this one, this algorithm right here into as a flowchart. Okay, sige, mag-flowchart na to siya. So let's create a flowchart out of this pseudocode. So let's start from here. Okay. Okay, so first is dapat naka-start. The start. And after that, so pwede ka mag-initialize ng mga values. Let's say, okay, so this is initialization. Let's say, butang ka nila og num1, num2, and then you have sum is equal to 0. So, initialize nimo ang sum by 0. After that, you will take input from the user. So, probably, you can do something like input value or input two integers. So, pwede ko the input two values, num1 and num2, or something like input two integers. Then after that, you use the process to perform arithmetic operation. Let's say sum is equal to num1 plus num2. Okay? And then after that, you can also use this one because this one is an input-output or pwede tong display. Now, pwede ka maingon na the sum is, okay, so pwede the sum is, and then like sum. Okay, so medyo na programming siya pero pwede ka maingon or simply mo ingon lang ka direct show the sum. Okay, pwede ra maingon show the sum. Then if wala na kay wala na next out of this kay mag-perform naman ta show the sum and then you'll have to end your flowchart. So again, naa siya start and then naa siya end. So this is now what we call the process or process of a solution. Okay? So now, i-program na po siya into C++. Okay? So we're gonna be creating a itatag online compiler dire. Online sabong manigawas. So, okay, I'm gonna change my yeah. So let's say we have here, okay, that's it. Now, tag online compiler, that's it. Maklaro ninyo? Okay. Good. Okay. So online compiler lang sa ta and then later on mag-install ta og mag-install tag isa ka application and then magsulat tag program. Sorry for that. Okay. So let me discuss this one to you right now here. So right here we have here a simple structure of a C++ program. Okay, so this is again a simple structure of a C++ program. This is what we call comment. Don't you worry, we'll be discussing all of this, but for now, a little bit or an overview muna of a C++ program. So again, these are comments. These are not being read by our compilers. So kasabot naman ta sa compiler, no? So compiler translate all this, okay, written English statements into machine language. Now, karon, the first thing you will do is kani, no? So you should so since this is C man ay di kailangan na to mag C++, change na to na into C++. Wait for a while. Okay, C dito. Okay, kaya para may .c. Okay, this one is C++. So kanina C to siya. Mailhan mo pag C++ is because .cpp. Pag .c, that's C++. Okay, so this is what we call kani siya, akong kani, makita ka class? Okay, this is preprocessor directives. Okay? So this is what I told you earlier na mga library, no? So library or library package in Java. So I in C++. So this one is the parang import statement. So it means that you are actually going to include, no? You are actually going to include input, output, stream. So pag may tag stream, actually mga string components, a series of characters. So this stands for input, output, stream. Okay? So sharp include input, output, stream. Okay? So ang uban ay .h depende sa imong library. Okay? So mao ni ang gina-link ni linker later on once i-run mo ni program, this will be linked by our linker if nagamit pa siya nag what they call this one, nag-include ba siya og isa ka library because you actually put something here na cout. Medyo audio na ano, please paki-mute ko. Okay. So by the way, we can actually run this one. Okay, run nato ni siya. You will have this hello world. Now, what if, okay, balik ka sa main.cpp and then you don't include this one. Okay, so i-control X na to siya and then i-run na to. So there, no, you have here something like cout is not a member of STD or standard. STD, by the way, stands for standard. So it's actually, according to this one, that standard cout is defined in a header. Something like Natasha, did you forget to include IOStream? So therefore, you need to include that because this one is going to be linked. Pag link ni linker sa library, by IOStream, wala daw. So therefore, mag-error siya. So dapat naani siya. Okay? Alright, in the case of this one, every time mag-declare ka of cout, okay, you will have to declare this one or define this one. Pero if you don't want na mag-define ka ani, you can actually, we have actually a way to remove that one or to like omit that one. But let's say for an instance, wala na mag-i-appel and then let's run the program. It will actually give you an error. So, ayan, cout, hello world, standard, cout. Okay? So, cout ha, dili kuot. Okay, ayaw ng kuot. Okay, so you have here using namespace standard. Okay, so kaning using namespace standard para dili na ka magsige std dot dot. Okay, instead of magsige kag ana every time mag-declare ka, mag-print ka, mag-input ka, you will need to declare using namespace standard. So when you run that, everything is going to be well. So you will have display hello world. Okay, so also another is int main. So by the way, when a program in C++ starts with the main method, it means this is your main method. Everything you write here will be the first thing that our compiler is going to read. So bisan pa una kay other methods dira and then it doesn't include int main, therefore the program will not run. But again, in the future mao na to ang discussion pohon, no? But for now, let's stick to this int main. Okay, so every time you write here will be read by our compiler. Okay, by the way, this returns 0 since this is a method. It is expected to return something, and since you use an integer value, you return actually 0. Pwede 1, so 0 denotes no error. Yan. Okay, but for now, since we don't return any value, so let's just ano na it set na it is 0. It does not give any or it does not return any value. Like it's just a 0 value. Okay, so now what if we are going to convert the flowchart, okay, by following the flowchart kanina, this one, no, katong kanina na flowchart, ato tong i-convert into programming. So right here, you can, di ba, take two integers. So pwede ka maguntang int num1, num2, or sum is equal to 0. So because diba, this is the first thing we do. So this is declaration. Sorry, declaration plus initialization. By the way, if you just do something like this, declaration lang na siya. If you put a value assigned to a certain variable, that is initialization. Okay, so declaration, initialization. So don't you worry. Again, we will get delve into this one in the succeeding topics. So now let's have the output. So this is the cin is stands for input, no? So the library for that is necessary to be declared for this one is also IOStream. Okay, partner na si cin o si cout. Okay, let's say we have num1. Okay, and pwede nimo siya i-num2. Actually, pwede nimo siya i-separate like that one, or much better in ana na lang since parehaman sila og type. Okay, and then after that, this is now the input. Okay, then you have here, let's say sum is equal to num1 plus num2, and then this is now your process. Okay, so di ba, this is represented by katong parallelogram. This is represented by rectangle rather. Okay, and then let's say output that. So the sum is, and then you write, oh, pinajaba na. The sum is sum. Okay, so therefore, when you run this program, okay, so what happened? Okay, it num1, num2, cin, num1, num2, there's an error. Anong wala man gibutang ag 1 dire? Unsa man ni akong keyboard? Okay. Unsa man ang keyboard nato dire? All right, thank you for that, no? You have a bright eyes. Okay, so there, no? Our program is already starting and it seems like there's no error. So for this, it is actually waiting for an input from coming from the user. So that is why importante pod ang display, no? So ang display or something like kana ganing caption, no? Caption or instruction to what will the user should do. So para ani, in this case, may kag 3, and then 4, and then unsay may buon sa user, unsa may iyang buhaton, wa siya idea unsay buhaton niya. So, okay, so mas okay kung naatay, what happened? Mas okay kung naatay, what? Mas okay kung naa siya'y say button, naatay display or something like see out here telling the user what to do. Okay. So for an instance, input to integers. But based sa tuwang algorithm ganina sa atong flowchart, wala tayo display na input to integers. But makita niyo siya sa input-output. Okay? Pero pwede po ninyo nabutangan og output yun na type to integers, enter to integers, para a programmer would also know unsay buhaton niya if i-follow to niya na flowchart. Okay? So based on our program now, it will tell the user to input to integers. So importante po again, no, this is also one of the underrated na parang idea, no, na dili gina-appeal normally sa programmers, but for especially sa mga nag-start pag programming, you'll have to have something like mga instructions on what to do, buhaton sa user. So it's like mag-fill out ta og biodata ba, no? Dili man siya okay kung ang biodata walay caption like what to enter. Name ba na siya, gender ba, age ba na siya. Okay? And there's actually confusion about, sir, kanong na biodata, sir, anong gender man ang ibutang, anong uban sex, ang uban gender, no? So uh, it's the gender of noun, and then sex is the gender is just a, di ba, preference niya. Ang sex is ang uban man gud magyaga-yaga butang nila 3 times a day, 4 times a week, no? Kasi inana mo lang. So that's why not ibutang dito gender. So yan. Anyway, so it's so important na you tell the user, okay, you tell the user on what he or she will do with your program. So in this case, if we run our program right here, na naka-input to integers, let's say 5 and 6, and then uh, you display something like the sum is 11. So you can also do something like the sum of, okay, sum of num1 and, okay, let's say num2 is, I didn't know the sum of sorry, the sum of num1 and num2 is sum. So, what happened? The sum of num1 and num2 is what we lack here. Can you guys check? The sum of num1 and num2 is sum. See out the sum of, dili allowed? Mm. Okay, atong compiler does not allow this kind of declaration. So later on, mag-install ta og compiler na would actually process this kind of output, okay? Or statement. But again, this is actually allowed to C++. But for now, so let's stick to the sum of, yeah, the sum of, the sum is no lang. Okay? So that's it for our what do you call this one? This is for uh, our basic from again, no ato ang ano karon is from pseudocode to algorithm, pseudocode to flowchart to converting it to a program, an actual program. So what is now what is now the takeaway after this? So what I'm the very goal of this topics now is that, or this topic is actually letting you know that for every program that we are going to create now in the future, it is best to document it by writing a certain pseudocode or writing a certain flowchart. However, there are at the times, especially kung magdali-dali ka, syempre, you don't have to do certain like flowcharting or pseudocode na kasi rapid ang imong development. Okay? But in that sense, the only way kasi for our clients to at least understand what we are trying to do is letting them understand the way they are able to understand, kasi they cannot understand our language. Therefore we can present them something like in a form of pseudocode or a flowchart. At least that sense they are able to understand us, kasi kung i-present mo directly ang program, they might not understand it, and you cannot. Okay, na po instances na you cannot actually directly give them the program. Okay, kasi what if they are not going to approve it? So part of the planning of a software is you have to do a pseudocode or at least a flowchart, or depending on the requirements given to you, no, or being asked from you. So inana ang idea ana. Another based on experience, actually we don't we don't require much. I mean, we don't require. We are actually not required, no, as a programmer to provide them with like flowchart or pseudocode. But actually, pseudocoding are just used for every programmer to, kasi it's really difficult for us to like jump into writing programs directly without actually having a pseudocode, especially pag complex na, you really have to do pseudocoding. Kasi in that sense, diha nimo mas ma-appreciate, diha nimo you are able to provide something that kanagang ginatawag na to, a program that is uh, right and correct and appropriate for a certain algorithm. And you can actually choose this and the best algorithm, no, for a certain problem. Okay? So this time we're gonna be installing a stop sa nato ang recording.